So today I wanted to go over some of the bad advice you might hear as you're going along your preparedness journey.
That was terrible advice. Terrible advice.
Some of the stuff you might hear on forums and groups and things like that. Some of that bad advice that you should probably just avoid. Over my time doing this, the decade plus or so, I've heard quite a few of these. Some of these not so often anymore, and some that just seem like they will not go away. Also, a couple of these are a little bit nuanced, meaning there's more to it than just the little explanation you might get. A lot more goes into it. So this is only a few. This is about 9 different things that I hear. If you have anything that I don't mention in this video, make sure and leave them in the comments below. Help other people out. Some of the things that you've heard that is just plain bad advice from the preparedness community. But the first one I've got here is if you're not prepared for the big one, then you're not really a prepper.
It's the apocalypse, end of days, the judgment day, the end of the world, my friend.
And I hear this in one way or another quite often in the preparedness community, how you have to do it a certain way. You have to be prepared to a certain level. And while that is ideal, and that is the ideal situation that we all want to be in, it's just not feasible for most people. There are limitations as far as physical limitations, financial limitations, all of those different things that go into how prepared we can be. And some people just don't want to be that person that is prepared for 2-3 years or whatever that number is. So that's one that it really doesn't matter. Now, what somebody else says or what they don't, you can be a prepper. If you want to call yourself a prepper, call yourself a prepper. If you don't, you don't. But it really doesn't matter. The main thing is that you're doing something in the first place. All right, now the next one here is if you're not already prepping, it's too late and you're doomed.
We are going to die.
We are going to die. We're all going to die. Just not today.
I hear this every once in a while. I still get emails about articles I write or videos I do with people saying that, hey, it's already too late. It's the time to start was a couple years ago. And it's just not true. We've been saying that in the preparedness community for years and years and years. And nothing really large scale or nothing that has been super life-changing that affects a large number of people hasn't happened yet. So there is time to start preparing. I would do it ASAP, and I would get that ball rolling as soon as you can. But just because you haven't started doesn't mean you can't start. It's always better to just get the ball rolling, get going, and start doing what you need to now. Another one I hear quite a bit in the preparedness community and outside of the preparedness community, mainly outside of the preparedness community, is that if the nukes start falling, we're all dead. So why would you want to survive that?
It can't be good.
And the truth of the matter is, if the nukes start falling, sure, if you're in ground zero, if you're in that blast radius, you're toast, literally toast. But if you're outside of that, there's a possibility, and the further outside of that, there's a possibility that you do survive. And what are you going to do if you survive? So being prepared means that we're paying attention to the fallout, the radiation, all those things that could affect us. And if we're not prepared for that and we do survive, it's going to be a slow, painful death, basically. So saying that the nukes are going to fall what's the point? Who would want to live after that anyway? You may not have a choice, and you may be alive. So you might as well prepare to do something in case that happens. And a nuclear war isn't the complete utter destruction of mankind that people used to think it is. There's a lot more that goes into that. So again, this is just one of those fallacies that, hey, now if you live in a city, maybe, because that's where most of the bombs are going to drop. If you live in a target of an environment that is going to be a target, maybe, but you just never know. So the next one I hear, and this is one of those not so much anymore, because everything is online these days. But I've heard people say you need to be completely off the grid.
Get me off the grid.
You need to be completely hidden from the government and, all of these different things and erase your tracks on the internet. And it's just not possible. Now, we do need to take steps to mitigate what we do online and what we say online and which lists we get on, because like it or not, we're all on some sort of list. And these days, there's getting to be more and more lists. So we do need to mitigate that stuff. But to say that you're going to completely erase your online footprint, it's just not feasible. Most of us have jobs. If you own a home, you've got paperwork. If you have credit cards or anything like that, there is going to be a digital footprint of you. Now, it's not to say it's not impossible, but it's not very feasible for a majority of the environment to go out and live like a hermit in the middle of the woods. It's just not feasible. So while we do need to take steps to mitigate how much we do online and what we do online, there's no way to go completely off the grid as far as your online presence. All right, another one, and this is another one that I don't hear so much anymore, but you've got to get rid of all those modern conveniences.
The internet?
Yeah, it's like a series of computers that are connected through...
Computers?
So you hear all the time about how this manual supply is going to be better and this manual supply is going to be better. You can't depend on GPS and things like that. And while there is some truth to that, this is one of those that's a little bit nuanced. While there is some truth to that, as far as if the grid goes down, if there's an EMP or something happens and you can't use that stuff, you are going to have to understand how to read a map and a compass, how to get somewhere without GPS, how to do these things without these modern conveniences. But that doesn't mean they don't have their place in preparedness. They've made preparedness a whole lot easier than it ever has been, as far as gathering information, having the ability to get that information, share ideas with other people in the preparedness community, learn from other people. So all of these conveniences are great, but in a large scale, some sort of grid down type situation, yeah, you don't want to depend on those. But in a grid down situation, would you rather go back to one of those old crank drill bits, or would you rather have a cordless drill that's got a battery and you can and you have the means to charge that battery? So you're using that modern convenience, you're incorporating that into your preparedness plan. So while all those old school things and all those old school tools and supplies and all that are great, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go that route completely 100%, but it's always good and always important to understand how that stuff works. All right, another one I hear quite a bit is if you're not in a prepper group, you're dead. You have to join a prepper group. There's just no buts, ifs, ands, or buts about it.
I want to thank you all for coming, and I thought we'd start out by just getting to know each other.
All right, well, I'll start this off. My name is Bob, with a B.
And while I think a prepper group is super important, I think if you have the means and the ability, it is only going to help your survival. So this is not to say that prepping groups are bad or they're overrated or anything like that. But they're a lot harder than people make it out to be. It's a lot harder to meet these people. It's a lot harder to get a group of like-minded people together. You've also got the OPSEC portion of that where, say you do meet a group of people and then you disclose what you have, what you're doing, and then everything falls apart. Now those people know what you're doing. So getting in a prepping group is easier said than done. I do think community, having a support group, anything like that is super important as well, because that's how we're going to thrive. We can't be the lone wolf. Most of us can't be that lone wolf. So we do need that group, that community, those other people to help us get through a situation. So while a prepping group is fantastic and it would be ideal, it's just not feasible for most people. So if you're one of those people that can't, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean give up and stop. It just means you've got to figure something else out. All right, so this next one right here, this is one that just will not go away. And this goes more into having the right tool for the job than just this, but I'll plug that wound with a tampon.
Do you know what you're doing?
Technically, no, but I've been doing some research and I feel fairly confident I know how.
This one just will not go away. And like I said, having the right tool for the job is going to be an essential part of any survival situation. So Some of these gimmicks and some of these things that we learn online, some of them are great and they absolutely would work in different situations. We all love the multi-purpose stuff. We all like to be able to MacGyver something because in any sort of situation, a disaster situation, you never know if you're going to have those tools available to you. So you want to be able to figure something out. Like I said, MacGyver something. But keep in mind that if you have the means to use the right tool for the job, then use the right tool for the job. There are 100 different things that are better for packing a bullet wound or a large wound or something than a tampon. It's just not one of those things that is really likely or really feasible. Most of us men are not going to be carrying around tampons in our trauma kit. I'm not, I won't. There are a lot of different things. You could use this hoodie right here. You could use cloth. I mean, a lot of different things you can use to pack a wound that isn't a tampon. This goes for everything in preparedness, though. This is just the example I used. If you have the means to use the right tool for the job, use that tool for the job. But it doesn't mean that some of these hacks and these tricks and everything are completely worthless. It just means have them as your backup and not your main plan. All right, so the next one here is I've learned everything I need to know from YouTube.
This is instructions on how to remove a bullet.
That's not small. That's really big.
And this isn't so much something people say, but it's something how they act. Like, hey, I don't need to go to this first aid class, this stop the bleed class. I don't need to go take a shooting class or anything like that because I've watched Hickok 45 on YouTube or I've watched Skinny Medic or whoever. I've watched all these videos. I've watched how to suture a pig, so I'm going to be great with sutures in an SHTF situation. All of that, you can learn a lot from YouTube University, and I've learned a ton of things that, I would never have been able to if all of this information wasn't out there and available to you. But nothing beats hands-on learning. Nothing beats being in that stressful situation and having to make decisions, and most of the time in the beginning, the wrong decisions, and having an instructor there to coach you and get you through and tell you what you did wrong, what you did right, and all that. So nothing beats those hands-on classes, especially when it comes to first aid and shooting and those really important things, the bushcraft and stuff as well. Nothing beats those first aid classes. You can learn a lot from YouTube, but that only goes so far. And like I said, you do need that hands-on learning. All right, so the last one I've got here, and this is another one that just will not go away. And this one is one that won't go away and one that's a little bit nuanced as well. But just put it all on a credit card, because when the poop hits the fan, nobody's going to be coming to collect your debt anyway.
I'm sorry, sir. I can't accept this credit card. Would you take a personal check?
While that may be true in 1% of disaster situations or disaster scenarios, most of the time, if you owe people money, they're coming to get that money from you. So if you go into debt because you think everything's about to just go to crap, so you just max out all your credit cards, you buy a bunch of food storage, you buy a bunch of prepping supplies and the greatest bug out bag and all that stuff, and then it doesn't go to crap or it doesn't go as bad as you thought it was going to, now you owe on all that stuff. And now what are you going to do? Being in debt makes you less prepared because you're beholden to somebody. With living without debt is freedom, basically, because you don't owe anybody. And that's what is at the core of preparedness, is not being dependent on anybody for your survival or your situation. So like I said, this is a little bit nuanced because there are times when it may be the only choice you have is to put something on a credit card. If there is something imminent, you know for sure, and there's no way that you can get enough food or whatever to go withstand that disaster event, whether that's a natural disaster or something, then yeah, you know what? You don't have a choice. You got to put it on the card. It's better to have a little bit of debt and survive that disaster situation than not go into debt and not survive that situation. So
yeah, just put it on my platinum card.
Like I said, it's a little bit nuanced. But for the most part, you want to do your best to get out of debt. Use cash while we still can. Do things like that that will help you get out of debt, help you decrease the amount that you're dependent on other people, and decrease the amount that in a disaster situation, say it's a a depression type situation that could be unfolding to some level, they can't come take your stuff. Now homes, that's a difficult one, but other stuff, your car, a bunch of different things. If you're not in debt, they can't come take it because it's not theirs. They have no right to it. So try to get out of debt as much as possible, and that's just a good idea for life, not just for prepping. So at any rate, that's the ones I have for this video.
You done already?
If you guys have any that you've heard and it just drives you crazy, or some stuff that you've heard on Facebook or wherever, forums, in groups, and it's just, it's bad advice. I know for some of you that have been doing this for a while, you've probably heard your fair share, just like I have. But it would help other people too if they get that advice from people who actually have been doing this for a while and know what they're talking about. But at any rate, I appreciate y'all listening today. Like I said, leave a comment below and let me know your thoughts. If you like the video, make sure and subscribe to the channel. Make sure and share the video out. But with that, take care and prepare. We'll talk to y'all later.